It was a very productive, fruitful conversation. I was able to discuss the concerns about recent events in the human rights situation, the events of August 1 and beyond. The President stressed his commitment to respect for human rights and creating a peaceful environment for Zimbabwe and the people here. From the United States, we are committed to working to help Zimbabwe's people achieve democracy, human rights, and prosperity. And we believe that profound reforms, as called for by both candidates, are quite valuable and important.
Mr. Ambassador, we have just seen that Mr. Trump has just signed the ZIDERA, reviewed the ZIDERA, and at a time when the Zimbabwe government is looking at re-engagement, and it was passed even before the election, and the holding of free, fair, credible elections had been one of the conditions. And now that it was passed before the elections were held, what are you going to do about this?
The original ZIDERA was passed in 2001. The legislation that was passed by the Senate and Congress in July of this year updates a number of provisions. The original legislation was 18 years old. This brings it more in conformity with the current reality and advocates for reforms in the area of democracy, human rights, economic reforms, rule of law. Those were all important steps that I know that the President Mnangagwa is committed to and Nelson Chamisa is committed to. We believe that this provides a framework for our cooperation with Zimbabwe and a guide path for the way forward. Senator Flake was here as recently as August 1 to meet with the President. Secretary Pompeo and President Trump are very much committed to a positive relationship moving forward in order to promote the goals that are laid out in ZIDERA and to help Zimbabwe become more prosperous, more successful, and more democratic.
Your country has been accused of siding with the opposition, and given the efforts that are being made to improve relations between Zimbabwe and your country, are we going to see any change in that stance?
We support freedom of speech, democracy, free and fair elections. We don't support any particular party or person or political figure in Zimbabwe.
Do you think Zimbabwe is moving in the right direction?
I think a number of the steps and reforms that have taken place over the course of the last 9 months have been quite positive. The events of August 1st to the present have been deeply troubling to the international community and to my government in particular. And President Mnangagwa's commitment to a transparent and thorough investigation of those events is very, very important for my government.
Are there any other areas of concern from the American side?
Well, the violence of August 1st, the deaths of 6 people in the streets here, the intimidation of opposition polling agents, violence in the densely populated suburbs around Harare have all been issues of concern. The Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission has put out a statement which addresses their view of some of the concerns here, and those are things that my government shares. I refer you to the joint statements released by the United States, the UK, and the European Union. There are 2 joint statements that have come out since August 1st, and I would refer you to those. Thank you very much.
Why are you blaming for the violence? Why are you blaming for that August 1st incident, the violence?
What we've said is there should be a transparent and credible investigation, and that those responsible should be judged according to Zimbabwe's constitution and laws, and respect for human rights should be observed.
Mr. Ambassador, do you think the courts will be impartial?
Were you able to ask the President-ED about the investigations and how far the investigations have gone regarding who sanctioned the shootings and what has happened with the perpetrators? Were you able to ask him those specific questions? And if so, what was his
If you look
response?
at the cameras, then
And I want the back of my head where it's going to be. The president has directed that there be an investigation. That's still in the initial
He
stages.
has already said that, but have you had a chance to ask him how far the investigations have gone? Because this is not new. He has said investigations are underway. So were you able to ask him that specific
There's
question?
no additional information that I've received.
But did you ask that question?
I asked him how it was going, and he said they're investigating.
And also, what does Zimbabwe have to do exactly for Zidera to be removed? Just some of the issues that you think are important that Zimbabwe has to do so that the sanctions can be removed.
Okay. What Zidera does is it deals with loans and arrears to international financial institutions. It does not deal with individuals. What it calls for are investigations into past human rights abuses, reforms to the electoral and judicial systems, promotion of rule of law. It calls for economic reforms to deal with the issue of land tenure. So all of those areas are things that both candidates have talked about in their campaign platforms, and I'm sure will be debated vigorously when the next parliament convenes.
Do you think the courts to be impartial in this current situation between the MDC Alliance and ZANU-PF going to court? Do you think the courts are impartial?
I think that the courts will have to prove to the people of Zimbabwe that they are weighing the facts of the case and considering them carefully and rendering an impartial judgment. I think that that's a question that will be answered by the performance of the courts, not by me or any other person giving their opinion.
Thank you, Excellency.